Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the BMB Dhammadana dialogue series. Today we are going to start off a new dialogue. In this dialogue, we will be looking at the new trends of the Dhamma talk cultures and also the future of the Dhamma talk cultures. With me, we have Professor Deegalle Mahinda Thero, and we have a very interesting meditation teacher from Sri Lanka. Bhante, Venerable Mahinda Thero is from UK, and we have Mr. Upulgamagi. He is the resident teacher of the meditation center. We call it Nilambe in Peradeniya. First of all, I wanted to introduce Bhante, Professor Deegalle Mahinda Thero. He is an Emeritus Professor to the Bath Spa University in the UK, and he's currently a Professorial Research Associate at the School of Oriental and African Studies, affiliated to the University of London in the UK. And he's also a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge, working on Tripitaka translations and many other contemporary Buddhist religious intersections in his own research. He's not new to the research world, maybe a little new to the practitioner world in this Maha Vihara context. And we have Mr. Upulgamagi. Upulgamagi has been a meditation teacher for a long time. He has been to Maha Vihara, this interesting center, many years, long time ago. And we are here at Maha Vihara, Buddhist Maha Vihara in Brickfield, Kuala Lumpur, the place where most of the elements of English Dhamma talks, English Dhamma discussions were started off by late Venerable, most Venerable K. Sri Dhammananda Nayaka Thero. Without his innovations, without his pioneering efforts for English Dhamma talks to mainly English-speaking people in late 50s, we would have never come to this kind of a dialogue. So we are humbly thankful to late Venerable K. Sri Dhammananda Nayaka Thero, and we are grateful to him. And in today's administration, Mr. Leslie, Secretary of the Sasana Buddha Society, and President Mr. Sirisena Prematilaka, and present Chief Incumbent, Chief Reverend, Most Venerable Dhatu, K. Sri Dhammadutta Nayaka Thero. And we have the blessings of all these precious individuals to start off and continue this series of dialogue under the BMB Dhammadana dialogue series. Let me introduce the topic one more time. New trends and future of the Dhamma talk cultures, a Buddhist perspective. Here our focus or emphasis is going towards the new trends. Now we have traditional trends, I would say, ancient ways of giving a Dhamma talk, as we can see in the text. And as time changes, as we move on, things have changed, conditions have been changing, people have been changing, cultures have been changing. Technology has made a topsy-turvy turn in many ways. So it is very clear that Dhamma talks have also been going through lots of changes under these new trends, and I will be asking these new trends from these Venerable monk and then the gentleman. And also we are looking at the future of the Dhamma talk cultures. One of the purposes of this particular topic is to tell people that to pay attention to different types of Dhamma communications, going beyond an ancient traditional Dhamma talk. It could be a Dhamma discussion, it could be a youth session, it could be a meditation retreat, it could be probably a Buddhist song, Buddhist music, incorporating Dhamma thoughts. And finally, we are trying to tell people being moderate and being available to all these kind of sharings and get the most out of all these Dhamma sharings. And also looking at what we could think about the future of the Dhamma talk cultures, probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. All right, I think our motive is clear, so I'm going to ask my first question from Venerable Professor Deegalle Mahinda Thero and Mr. Upulgamage. I will ask from Venerable Deegalle Mahinda Thero. Welcome back here. Welcome to the Maha Vihara.
Thank you.
All right, so you know, Dhamma talk, when you say Dhamma talk, Dhamma sermon, preaching, there are loaded words and there are, I would say, contextual, literal ideas going around this topic and then the whole experience. How do you recognize, how do you introduce a Dhamma talk from both ancient, contemporary, modern day context?
Yeah, thank you for Venerable Dr. Chandima Thero for organizing this, and I think I personally appreciate your forward outlook on this topic, and I think it will be challenging for two of us to discuss complicated aspects of it. When I approach from Western perspective, from a perspective of English audience, Dhamma talk I tend to interpret broadly as a method of communication. I was thinking to make my own interpretation or commentary or gloss. Dhammi katanti Dhamma kata. Dhammi kata Dhamma katati. The beneficial conversation or beneficial instruction is the religious instruction, something like that. Now, so the foundational quality of a Dhamma talk should be, it should be beneficial to the audience. It should enrich the audience life. It should enrich whoever come to it. So that should be the foundation. Now, of course, I can elaborate it from Buddha's own words, like, for example, the foundational structure of any religious instruction, in particular Buddhist sermons, should have three aspects: Adi Kalyanam, Majje Kalyanam, Pariyosana Kalyanam. It should be beautiful or beneficial at the beginning. It should be beneficial or healthier in the middle, and it should end with some beneficial conclusion so that it gives you a perspective to the listener. So there, the form is very important. The appearance is important. The attractive presentation is important part of it. And then the heart of it is the message. Of course, from Buddhist point of view, it should probably illustrate a key message of the Buddha. So perhaps in the Sri Lankan context, Dhammapada is a good example for this, for the preachers. You know, one verse or a prose section of the canon should be the basis. So there, that's the heart of the crux of the sermon. And of course, that should be, I think, any form of Dhamma communication. Now, of course, for this, we have two words: Dhamma desana, that's mean delivering a sermon, or in Sri Lankan context, we have bana, which is coming from the word speak, you know, probably around 9th century, 10th century has its origin. But it related to Bhanaka, the old Pali term. But basically, it's a word for public speaking. Speaking of Buddhist preacher. So there, of course, when we approach it from Sri Lankan tradition, Dhamma talk has many boundaries, many limitations, and many strict rules. Whereas when you approach from English-speaking world, it has a fluid boundaries rather than fixed boundaries. But in broadly, I would say communication of the Buddhist teaching is the primary purpose of any Dhamma talk, whether it's a discussion, performance, or public speaking event.
Yeah, makes sense. Great. Mr. Upugamage, now as Venerable Professor Mahinda Thero explained, that there are some boundaries, fixed or fluid boundaries, depending on where the Dhamma talk is going to happen. But if you look at the ancient context, how the Buddha handled his own ways of Dhamma talking, you know that he had certain ways of approaching people. He did not talk about Nibbana in the first place. It is said that he had an orderly speech, Anupuppi Kata, Dana Kata, Sila Kata, Sagga Kata. Dana means he first talked about generosity. Without being a generous person, you can't learn Dhamma. Then about morality, Sila Kata. Then about heaven or whatever other things. Then the disadvantages of the karmas, and then the advantages of the renunciation. So he had an orderly way of delivering. And also he, sometimes he appreciated his close ideas, I would say, close venerables' abilities about Dhamma talking. Say for instance, Satcha Vibhanga Sutta Majjhima Nikaya. In that he says, in order for somebody to teach his Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta's essence, he recommended Arahant Sariputta, saying that he had Achikkana, Desana, Panyapana, Pattapana, Vivarana, Vibhajana, Uttanikam. So these are abilities of Dhamma talks. Finally, he says Uttanikam, making deep Dhamma teachings shallow. Dhamma is deep, but he's talking in a shallow way. Right? Achikkana means saying, Vivarana means explaining, Vibhajana means analyzing, synthesizing. So looking at all these, spectrums, it seems that there should have some, I would say contextual, probably technical ways of, giving a Dhamma talk. But as we come to present day, things have changed. So how do you what's your take on about Dhamma talk, from ancient times and from modern day times? And you are a practitioner, meditation practitioner. I think you can't simply practice meditation. You have to incorporate certain Dhamma, matters into meditators before you start off your meditation. You have a meditation tomorrow too. So what's your take on about it?
Thanks, dear Bhante. And thank you very much for inviting me to share my ideas to this panel discussion. Anyhow, I think those days in Buddha's time, the aim is very clear. To help to the listener to understand him or herself clearly, and where are they, and what they are doing, and why they are experiencing conflicts in their life, and how to transform themselves, how to overcome their problems or suffering. So that's the only aim during the Buddha's time. But later on, as Bhante said, now the aim is different. It became a meritorious or ritual something. Therefore, transformation or changing or understanding oneself is not so important in this movement, especially in Sri Lanka or traditional Buddhist countries. We want to earn some merits by just participating and organizing and offering things. We are interested in accumulating some good deeds. So that's all. Therefore, it doesn't matter whatever you heard, whatever the speaker said, it doesn't matter. It is not so important at the moment. So you don't have to think about the crowd or the audience or whatever. Just we had to follow that order, that giving precepts and chanting some Dhamma Savana Kalo, and then as Bhante said, taking a theme from Dhammapado, whatever sutta, and explaining a little bit, and that's all. But because now the aim is completely different than the Buddha's time. So Therefore, it's a now system. Method is there. We have to follow those procedures. That's why it has all boundaries and limitations. But during the Buddha's time, it's different. The Buddha is free. And all the other, as you mentioned, that Bhante, not Bhante, the Arahat, Sariputta, Thero, other teachers, bhikkhus, so bhikkhunis, they are free. What they have done is they just understand the person who is there or the audience and try to help them to understand themselves and explaining them about the path of Dhamma. So it's a challenge. I think Buddha has challenge and all the other, those teachers had challenges. But now, no challenge at all. Just doing some ceremonial thing. But it goes well with the old generation. But for the modern generation or young generation, they don't like this type of preaching bana or giving sermons in this way. So they want to know some practical aspects. So that's why the modern generation are not going to churches anymore. So once I was in Sweden and one of my friends asked to participate wedding at the church. And then the priest was starting to give a long sermon, and in the halfway, they interrupt him and they said something in Swedish language and I couldn't understand. Then priest stopped the talk and finished the sermon, wedding. And later I asked what they told to the priest. And they said, they asked from the priest that if you can give some practical advices for our marriage life, then okay, but don't talk about heaven and God and those things which are not relevant to this moment. So I think this is happening in Buddhist cultures as well. We had to come down to the earth and understand about the new generation and what they are looking for and what they really want, and then start a new way or new tradition to address them.
Great. That is where we are going now. The next question is about those trends, new trends. I wonder, I mean, we don't have to talk a lot about it. I wonder why the emphasis of the Buddha's time has been gearing toward somewhere else. Is it because the Buddhist societies are keeping up with their survival within their own institutions for different reasons? You said that the popular way of talking Dhamma is about always encouraging merits, punya, kusala. I think rather than this could be a generational issue, probably this could be the starting point where somebody comes to a temple, but they end up in that practice. They are not going into meditation, they are not going into further levels where the young generations need. So, do you want to comment on that? Probably I'm going to ask Venerable Professor Mahinda.
Mr. Pulgamagate's...
with that, you could start off talking about new trends about Dhammadutta cultures.
Mr. Pulgamagate's observation is very valuable. I think Mr. Pul's observation, I think, identify cultural aspects of religious instruction. Because I think there are two dimensions. One, spiritual dimension, and then the cultural dimension. I think in the Buddha's case, it's more spiritual dimension, transformation, change, inspiration, so it was targeted sermon, person to person, well targeted, and knowing where the listener stands and what the listener looking for. So it's a kind of really direct communication. And now, actually, this is the problem of the preacher, because as preachers today, we don't have that ability to read the minds of the listener, and also we are doing this for larger crowds, and then it kind of made the preacher to make generalize. So this is what has personally happened. So, but these two dimensions, the spiritual dimension and the cultural dimension, they should go hand in hand in Buddhist cultures. And now, as Mr. Pulgamage said, it has been structured too much. And actually, I was thinking this about too. Academics call this Protestant Buddhism. This kind of thing, what happened in Sri Lanka, or what's happening in relation to sermon, is actually called Protestant Buddhism. What it means is, we observed how the Baptist, Presbyterian, and other evangelical preachers in the 18th century and street preaching and things like that in the latter part of the 19th century, and then Dharmapala, the revivalist, observe that we have to educate the people because then he said that we should focus on instruction. So he had this mobile vehicle, and he went and he imitated the same as the evangelical preachers, started giving sermons. So that's where this modern Buddhist preaching started, from Dhamapala. And then it was picked up by Venerable Vajrayana Thero in Vajirarama, and with Radio Ceylon, it got another format, and then after independence, it became 1 hour, and then the day, thought of the day in the morning. Like that, it got serious developments. And now, earlier I mentioned about the beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. I think those three aims were the target for those who designed the Buddhist sermon, and so didn't want to distort the Buddha's teaching, and so they want to stay on a straight path and not to deviate. And that may be perhaps what happened, become culture of merit making today. I think it's not wrong, or it's not even bad, because
where is the problem? Where is the problem in merit making?
There's no problem. And I don't see as a problem, because the people are in various stages of their life. Some are not very educated, not literate, and they have simple ways of life. And also they expect monks to do things that they cannot do. So one easy way of making their life comfortable is giving food to the monks and asking them to give a sermon, so that they can accrue merit, and which they cannot do themselves. So this is a kind of not a direct path, as we want, like the Buddha's time, go straight to the goal, but they go around it. But that's also like Anupubhikata, Dhanakata, Silakata, and so on, going around it. So rather than nothing, it's better to have it. But maybe what we could do is to improve the form, and perhaps add some question and answers, and also maybe the preacher to have a theme in the beginning and give brief 10 minutes, 15 minutes instruction, and say, I'm going to take a little bit break, think about this, and if you have questions in relation to your life, please ask, and then I will give you instructions from the Buddhist faculty, and then this spiritual transformation can occur, I think. And people say, I am going, I have a trouble with my children, my children are not treating me nicely. I have a problem in my office with my colleague. How I can apply Buddhism to address this situation? Can I use metta to address this situation? How should I work around it? Like that. I think that's actually not. It's not a problem of lay people, I think the preaching monks have to change the form, change the format of what we call Dhamma talk, especially in Sri Lanka, but also other. I mean, this is an interesting example. If you go to Thailand, for example, around November, at the end of the Vassana rain retreat time, they have something called Tet Mahachat. What it means actually is the preaching on the great birth. What it means is the preaching on the great birth means they perform the Vesantara Jataka, Buddha's last renunciation. And that is what found in Sri Lanka in the 18th century. We call it the two pulpit preaching, all-night sermons. And there's a link there, cultural element, music, dance, and use. So I think Sri Lankan situation is not unique. If you go into Thailand and so on, you can see the structure is even more rigid than Sri Lanka, much harder. But then when we talk about Sri Lanka and Thailand, but if you think about Japan, for example, they also have developed a preaching tradition. It's usually called seppo. Seppo is the Japanese word for preaching, especially in the Jodo Shinsu. Jodo Shinsu is the Pure Land Buddhist schools. They have always 1 hour preaching. Of course, it's Protestant too, imitating Christian style, but variety of things similar to Sri Lanka, like brief discussions, conversations and answers and so on. So all cultures have this. Even Zen Buddhist monks give brief instructions during their sermons. So now what we have in our theme, communication has been there in Buddhism. Buddha says in the beginning, Charata Bhikkhave Charikang Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Attaya Hitaya Sukhaya Devanusana. Monks travel. That's the key word, travel. But what is the purpose of travel? To work for the benefit of the people. How the monks work for the people? Instructing, giving. Dhammi Kata. Here I translated as, rather than righteous talk, beneficial talk. Dhammi Kata means beneficial talk. A conversation that enhances the listener's life. So Dhammi Kata, Dhamma Katati. Kind of beneficial talk as religious instruction. So communication. So the monks were on the way they made other people's life is giving religious instruction, as Mr. Upulgamuge said, that you understand the listener and you kind of have a targeted delivery. So Dhamma Kata or Dhamma talk is foundational, the central element of the Buddhist tradition in whatever form it takes.
Can you also identify the challenges, I would say new trends of the Dhamma talk cultures with your answer?
New trends?
Yeah, what are the new trends going on now? I think we're still talking about the definitive side of the Dhamma talk.
Yeah.
But what could you see as new trends in the Dhamma talk cultures compared to that ancient time nowadays? As you said, I think you said about Japan, Thailand, Sri Lanka. You were looking at the nature of the Dhamma talk. So could you also elaborate on the new trends that have been popping up through the definitions of the Dhamma talk? I mean, what are the new things that monks, nuns, lay speakers have been utilizing to make Dhamma communication in today's world?
Yeah, I think this the dynamics in the preaching or giving instruction found in everywhere, even in the Western world. Perhaps maybe 10, 15 years ago or 30 years ago, you won't hear many Pali words in the Dhamma talks. But now, the knowledge of the Pali, Sanskrit has widespread, or Tibetan or Japanese. These technical terms appears.
Everybody has access to Dhamma nowadays online. At that time, only books were in the temple, right?
That's right.
And they had not access
Yeah.
to those books.
Yeah, and also people travel to Asian countries and become ordained and have friends, and they acquire. So Dhamma discussion now in the West has been enriched with language expertise. Now people will ask, should we translate dukkha only as suffering? Is it adequate?
Yeah, we will talk about that in the next question about challenges of these new trends.
So the new formats. I mean, even in Thailand, there are new trends, but in Sri Lanka in particular, you can clearly see from, let's say, from 1980 onward, if you take it today, 40 years, significant changes. Like if you think about the sermons of Venerable Arya Dhamma, for example. So his focus was the Bodhi tree, but nevertheless there's a sermon part embedded into it. But if you look at them, they are more mundane things, parents, children, family, anger management and things like that. So this he was able to reach a lot of people because he was going away a little bit structure. He didn't have these inviting to gods and not that strict structure. So it kind of embedded into...
it's like a bitter medicine embedded with some sweet stuff.
Sweet stuff, and also his voice and his appearance and also his poems, Sinhala poetry, and the chant in them. I think it's mesmerized the young crowds. And the young crowd, they... Victor's Sir, Arya Dhamma's Burr. That means Victor Ratnayaka, the musicians, his Sir means Sir musical show.
Identical.
Musical Sir musical show, and then Panudri means Bodhi, Bo. So it's they became Victor Ratnayaka goes in the public space as a musician, Venerable
duet.
Yeah, and he appears also not under Bodhi tree, but in a volleyball field or somewhere public ground. So that's also changed. Of course, early also it was in the public field, so it happened. And then, if you think about recent times, the monk called Kotuwe Podu Hamdura, for example.
Dhamma Focus is about Sri Lanka, so if anybody doesn't know about these names for those folks. These are all from Sri Lankan monks, Sri Lankan writers. Dharmapala that you mentioned was a very revivalist.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
Like that you can see that his presentation is very casual. Because you are not supposed to actually use casual words in Dhamma talk. Because like Venerable Vajrayana Thero, when he introduced, he is very strict. He was very strict and said, you should not use this, you should not have music, and you shouldn't have that. Very rigid, very structured. And now some of the sermons that we see today in Sri Lanka, you will question it. To what extent is Dhamma talk, Even the language used is sometimes inferior language rather than...
colloquial, slang.
And also another thing is some preachers abuse the platform. And that's not nice.
Also a trend now.
Yeah, it's a trend. It's a trend. And also I think in general, we shouldn't use Dhamma talk to attack people because it's against the Dhamma. But that's also happening. But I think in Sri Lanka, not only the form, but the way it is done is changed. And now with electronic talk and technology, I think like the platform like TikTok, it has not captivated yet the monks, but I think Venerable Sumangala's age or young monks may picked up TikTok, I think. Very brief type of religious tongue, actually quite effective. I mean, rather than being very secular.
Some young monks have been catching up with those things in Sri Lanka at the moment, I think.
Yeah.
Some, they are not.
Yeah,
wrong.
and it could be very effective because I wanted to mention also, neither monks or lay people have time now. So I think we have to reduce the time taken to
segments.
Yeah, and that would be one way to transform the sermon, like to reduce into 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, and so that anybody can enjoy it and spare 5 minutes. So the platform like TikTok will be very ideal in terms of transforming it. I think it is happening in Thailand and other places like that. And I think in Japan, they have these cartoons called manga. And they are used for communication. Like, for example, I was researching on ascetic monks in Heisan. Like, they are called Kaihogyo, kind of pilgrimage on the mountain. They go, actually, when they finish the 7 years, it's more than walking around the entire world, that much pilgrimage. And they use cartoons to explain the journey, the monks travel, and so on. So it has gone in new directions, very effective way. Why? Approach it to young people, to reach to young crowds. And actually the young crowds are the ones actually will change this format that we have, as you said. The young people are not interested to fit into this merit making. So I think we have to devise new forms and also address the issues that they are facing. And I think that has to be done, I think.
Great. Mr. Upulgamagi, now you mentioned about transformation. I think it's an undefined. For a normal layperson, the word transformation might be a little, I would say, difficult to understand. You might perhaps talk about from mundane to extra mundane, kind of a very spiritual level. What if somebody asks you, can I transform myself from being a non-generous person into a generous person? A non-meritorious person into a meritorious person. So where is the thin line here? How do we draw between these two? So we had to be specific about this word transformation. So how do we do that? Mundane life and extra mundane life.
Yeah, well, that's the turning point. That's the significant difference between teaching Dhamma and teaching other subjects. So if the Buddhism becomes another subject as physics or geography, then it is just transporting knowledge. Nobody expects any transformation by learning geography. So unfortunately, Buddhism or teaching Buddhism or preaching Buddhism became like that, another subject. So nobody expects, even from the teachers, nobody expects the practical life. No student expect a physics professor should live according to the physics. So same thing now, nobody expect teachers to live in order to the teachings of what they are talking. So that's one of the very unfortunate thing. Therefore, actually transporting knowledge is not the aim of teaching Dhamma. Even during the Buddha's time, the Buddha deeply criticized it. Say, tuccho potilo. Tuccho potilo means he's
empty.
Yeah, his knowledge is full, but somehow his life is empty.
But knowledge is encouraged, but at a certain point one has to transform, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's the basic thing. We need some knowledge, of course. What kind of knowledge? The knowledge of our present life. This moment, who am I? What I am experiencing. So this is important. As you mentioned that if I am an angry person, so I should know that I am an angry person. That is the very basic knowledge, what we need. And then I have to accept myself. Yes, I am an angry person and I can accept the present reality. We meditate or whatever we do to accept the reality. So this is the very basic reality. what we have to accept. Yes, I am an angry person. I can accept my present reality. But then I need some kind of guidance or support to change myself. So we had to give that link, the bridge to them.
Makes sense.
Yes.
So can you also share with us about new trends, as Bhante mentioned, new trends in your own way? What are the new trends in the Dhamma talk cultures as you experience?
Yeah, one of the positive benefits of COVID is like Zoom.
Online space.
Online platforms, so people can connect and they can do discussions, ask questions, and do some teachings, learning. So we cannot avoid these things now. We cannot ask everybody should come to the temple or to the meditation center, and of course some of them can come, but most of them are, as Bhante said, busy. So we need some living Dhamma. Means the Dhamma should be in our life, everyday life. Before we thought Dhamma is in the temple, not in our home. But now we had to bring the Dhamma into the home, into the normal life. So I think one of the new tendencies is most of the universities are doing researches on Dhamma and mind and meditation. So that's a very good thing. Now
So one new trend is online space.
Online space and doing researches, scientific researches.
What are the other new trends that you have experienced in your traveling? You have traveled as far as Europe, some Asian countries. What are the new trends you see in the Dhamma talk cultures where monks and lay people deliver their talks?
Actually, the modern generation is not looking for knowledge. They don't come to listen to a talk or to any program to get knowledge, because they know better than us. They can get knowledge, information, and all these intellectual things easily. Access is very easy now. But they are looking for live examples. That's the important thing.
Role models.
Yeah, they need. So that should be the new tendency.
I think it's an important point, because I think the Western academics use two terms. One is called precept, and the one is practice. So what happened is that we give the precept, but it's devoid of practice. I mean, you're pointing out that actually Buddha says that what we listen, we should practice it. But what happened is that as a culture, because the Buddhism has become culturalized, I think the format has taken precedence over inculcation of the virtues and values. And as you said, the personal development, enriching or helping to people to flourish should be the refocus of the new age, kind of shift, not changing radically, but making the Dhamma talk down to earth. Rather than saying there are 6 heavens, can we see these 6 heavens or hells in our life? How we do it. Isn't it our life itself in that realm now? Either, depending on where you are, kind of making it down. And also see that little ways like loving kindness, compassion, generosity, how little by little that we can integrate into our life. And that's very important. And then we can bridge the gap seeking. Buddhism is not limited to seeking knowledge or collection of books. Of course, we know that Tripitaka books are used in Sri Lanka as relics already. So that means that we have to bring back the culture that the knowledge of Buddhism should not be limited to the book or the ritual or the sermon, but the knowledge of Buddhism should be integrated to resolve issues and concerns that we have in our family, in our office, in workspace, and so on. That's what I think maybe the new challenge of the new generation of Buddhist preachers, and this doesn't apply only to Sri Lanka. Actually, this applies to all Buddhist countries, including Japan, China, Korea, Taiwan, and so on. Some countries are doing better in this respect, and others are mediocre. Some are a little bit poor, but all have to work on how to adapt and adopt and modify and see the challenges as challenges. Because what happened is, in our culture, we kind of have a false perception. We can ignore the challenges. We can just leave the challenges and ignore them so that, it will be resolved automatically. But the questions that young generation have, drugs, pornography, all the other things, and issues with their parents, issues with their peers, they need to be approached from Buddhist angle, and solution has to be given, I think.
Makes sense. Let's go down to challenges and opportunities. We'll merge the last two. I think we may have heard about this book, Why Buddhism is True, written by a professor at Yale, Robert Wright, a couple years back. He says in his book that Western Buddhists, those who call Buddhist, they necessarily meditate. But the Eastern Buddhists do not take it as a mandatory practice. With that perspective, a lot of things coming up. It is not that Easterners don't meditate. If you see the Western meditation, mindfulness meditation, they don't have Sila part a lot. They don't start with the morality part. Precept is a big issue. If you're going to tell them, do this, don't do this, it's going to be a kind of a challenge to them. They might not like it. But in the East, precepts are fundamental and precursory to the meditation, as we see in the Noble Eightfold Path. Sila is a bigger thing. So, on the other hand, I think all the things that you both mentioning about merit-making issues, merit-making is good, but when it is overloaded with lots of unnecessary practices, cultural baggage, things go in a haywire area, it seems to me that probably the Dhamma speakers don't have enough sufficient strategic training to the time. What to talk, how to talk, and what should I present in a Dhamma talk. This is one big issue. Second thing is that how can we minimize these things that we don't feel comfortable in seeing in a Dhamma talk culture? Probably I would say, are we really addressing real issues in today's world? As Bhante mentioned, drug issues.
It is difficult, no? Like, for example, sex education. There are a lot of issues, like family issues.
Yeah.
Monks are not supposed to talk all these things, and also hard to integrate into the sermon, Like, even, suppose that even if you acquire knowledge about drug abuse, but if you give a sermon, they will suspect that you also,
Partly because we have self-imposed rules and we have self-limited parameters so that we can't. Anyways, so in terms of the challenges and opportunities, how we can progress, how we can work out, how we can improve these Dhamma talk cultures today and for the next couple of decades, what challenges do you understand and how are we going to overcome them? Maybe I'm going to ask from Mr. Pulgamagi, then I will ask from Bhante too. Yeah.
Well, actually, I can't see any challenges. Actually, no challenges. Only demand is there. High demand is there, and we are not.
Challenges to the old way of thinking, Buddhist communities.
Here, all the challenges are here, not there. So they are waiting. The whole world is waiting, and we are not ready. That's the thing. So we should be ready, we should be qualified for that. Qualified means, what are the qualifications? The first thing is, we should know the taste of Dhamma. So it's not a word, taste, Dhamma rasa. So we have to experience it, and after experiencing even a bit of taste of Dhamma, then we know what we are going to share. So we have to share our experiences. That's the thing. The modern world is looking for this. Are you experiencing what you are teaching? They ask this question even though they don't ask it directly, but they are interested in, are you experiencing what you are talking on?
So Dhamma talker has to be self-empirical about what he's going to say.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So how does that go with the present society, monks, Dhamma speakers? How does it work actually? Let's talk about opportunities where they can improve.
Yeah, therefore...
young monks, middle-aged monks, senior monks, how can they improve those challenges?
Well, it is not challenge if we are only giving those talks, Dhamma talks or Bana in our temples in the traditional way. Then actually no challenge, and people expect, and finally sadhu, 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 and happy. And that's good. The culture needs these things, and that's good. But that's why most of young people are not coming to listen to those things. And actually it's a problem, because they don't take Buddhism as a solution for their current problems.
If
That's
somebody
what,
suggests, if the temple can cater different Dhamma talk cultures to different audiences differently.
we have to do it.
Young people differently,
Yeah.
and elderly folks differently, small children differently, because if they take one big approach to everybody, it might not.
No, it's not possible.
Yeah,
and as Bhante said about sex education, we are giving precepts. The third precept is, we have to explain what the third precept is. Without explaining
it's undefined all the time.
Yeah,
it's undefined. Some monks are like, looking this way. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
It's very vulgar to me, Some people say like that.
And also, I mean, even that third precepts, very few people think the plural meaning in it, kamesu. That's in Pali, it's a locative case plural. So it's not a single thing. And it comes very much to the meditation in that way.
Yeah.
All your senses.
Kamachanda.
Yeah. So it's kind of even explaining those basic things can bring meaning to your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Please
True,
go on.
very true. So understand the target audience. It's very important in the Dhamma talk culture. Who is going to understand that? Who is going to recognize these things? Should it come from senior Sangha, or somebody has to make it, right? At a certain point.
Well, whomever...
Yeah,
we have to start it. No,
Start
we
this,
can't blame anyone. To blame anyone. We have to do it. If you have karuna, compassion, then we have to do it.
In Malaysia, they have Dhammadutta section of each center. Each Buddhist centers have a Dhammadutta center. There's an ESCO person. This person is the one who is organizing, inviting monks, and so things like that happen here. It's good. So they invite different Sangha to different audiences, lay speakers to different audiences.
And also different institutes. I mean, they're like drug rehabilitation centers. They are looking for counselors, Buddhist counselors. So, and prisoners in the prison, they are looking for Buddhist counselors.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to train.
At that point, that person has to know both prisoning, correctional facility, as well as Buddhism.
Of course,
It's like if you talk about Buddhist counseling, Buddhist psychotherapy, that monk has to specifically be proficient in that particular subject as well as Buddhism.
Yeah.
So I think this is a very overall project, I think. Yeah.
Of course. So we didn't do it. That's why there is a huge gap in our society. Not only gap, huge vacuum is there. And that's why we are going for Western counseling, Western psychology, so and so.
When somebody came to me in Ottawa, this person has been going to many psychology. He said, all psychologists come and see monks over here. So it's really, I haven't found my answer. Anyway, Bhante, Professor Mahinda, Thero?
Yeah, I think you guys...
I wanted to present a question and then you can answer.
Yeah. Thank you. I think
Can we bring up the education, monastic education side to these challenges and opportunities? Now, as you and I know, and most of the monks know, in Sri Lankan Buddhist education, meditation is not a part of that education. If you look at the Pirivena, Samanera Pirivena, they don't even do meditation, even for a short time. So they don't know how to sit, and sitting is a very big challenge for them. So Sri Lankan monks often get a very bad criticism from other Sangha that you don't know how to meditate, and you only talk about suttas and all that. This is one issue. Second is that how can we improve this monastic education to a level, especially university education. There are so many universities in Sri Lanka for Buddhism, Pali, and so many institutes. There are many educated Sangha, self-called Sangha or maybe reputed Sangha. But what are your suggestions for them to incorporate these challenges?
Thank you. I think here in our theme of communication, we can consider three things, perhaps two. The monastic school, Dhamma school, and the school. And now what happened is that all three has become one now, because passing exams and getting qualifications and passing some knowledge. Like, of course, school has to do that anyway, because school has to give education and pass the exams. And then monastic education and Dhamma school education should be different. Like, say, if we can transform Dhamma school, Sunday school as a personal transformation, kind of rather than targeting for certain exams. Of course, you could do that, but at the same time say, do you understand really what you're doing? How you can integrate it into your life and question it and integrate in it. And that, I think maybe the Dhamma school should be the foundation of self-transformation in Sri Lanka. And it's not happening more effectively. Maybe that's where the ground seeds have to be.
Why is it not happening in the Dhamma school?
Because it's...
every temple has a Dhamma school.
But I think Dhamma school came in a historical context. And historical context like Protestant Buddhism I mentioned, because the church had the church schools and Sunday schools, and then in that colonial context, Buddhist monks thought that we should have Dhamma schools to kind of disseminate Dhamma. And now the learning became very important, and it contributed significantly knowledge of little bit Pali and so on, so that people can chant the gathas. And I mean, now actually there are some positive developments. A lot of people, lay people, I mean, when I was small, only the elderly people knew Paritta. But now young generation know a lot of parittas by heart, Metta Sutta and so on, and the Gathas. And so that's a very positive development. I think we should appreciate that also. And sometimes young children, you see that 7 or 8 paritta threads. I mean, I have one young student of Cambridge, his hand is full of all paritta threads,
Powerful strings.
Powerful strings. And so there are, I think the young people try to accommodate it. So what will happen is that we haven't cultivated, like say for example Dhamma school should have more, like if not every day, once a month, voluntary work. Like say they should identify certain road or public space and cleaning, for example, once a month.
Even activity-based Dhamma school.
Activity-based, and then
not just all the time talking about the life of the Buddha.
Actually translating, like say I have to be involved in social welfare, and I have to give my energy like Sarvodaya. I can volunteer, because now young generation becoming more and more selfish than us, because they are
few opportunities, many people are trying,
and also you are moved to an isolated environment, because you are in front of the mobile phone, iPad or computer, and no interaction with the other people. Especially Corona period, people made them isolated. So the community is not anymore important for most people, because it has become self-centered thing. And I think the impact will be seen later on in 20 years' time. So I think we need to involve people more socially. So the good thing of the traditional Buddhist preaching is this community aspect. People got together, sat together, shared food, chat, gossiped.
temple has been the community center.
Yeah,
finally,
and therapeutic. You know, when you go to the temple, you can gossip, but that can release your frustrations. You know, not nice thing to gossip, but still, it kind of therapeutic. Huh? Therapeutic. Now, for young people, don't have that channel. You know, more or less it's close enough because young students are becoming isolated, and so on. So this transformation, engaging them, involved with the community, and translating them that, you know, once a month or few hours devoting time is good. Now, even the university is a problem. Even our university is a problem. Getting volunteers to do things, almost impossible.
Everyone is busy.
Everyone is busy. Actually, it's not busy.
They don't think it's
They don't have a will. See, the idea of when we call busy is nonsense. It's actually our nonsense, because actually we are not busy. We can always make time if we have the will. You know what
it's a polite answer, I think, too. Polite answer of not coming. It could be diplomatic polite.
Oh yeah. I think the lack of the will is the problem. Like if you have the will, then you will always find 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be few hours. It can be 5 hours. You know, you can escort an elderly person for a brief walk for 10 minutes. You know. That's if you do once a month. You can take the neighbor's dog for a walk for 5 minutes, and can be therapeutic. So these things has to be valued, and that's where this self-transformation has to occur. Because if you say learning to take care of somebody's dog, or assisting someone to do the shopping, or bringing some heavy groceries from shops to the house, little things like that can transform the individual's
do better self.
And I think that those practical lessons has to be included in the Dhamma school. In the monastic school also similar thing happened. Now, I mean, when we were small, we didn't have any gadgets at all. But now, in 15-year young monk have many resources. Wealth is there, technology is there, and there's a vulnerability for abuse is there too. So there, I think we have to kind of guide them also for voluntary work, and also tell that, you know, you need a private time to sit and observe yourself, understand yourself, challenge yourself, and ask question: who am I? Why am I in the robe? What I am going to do in 10 years? You know, what I will become when I become 50? Like, ask those serious questions. I think if we enable them to ask this question, then transformation occurs automatically. Nobody has to postpone it. What happens is that our system doesn't encourage them to raise that question, or don't facilitate or create an environment that they can raise the question. Because, I mean, nobody explained them why learning Pali is important, for example. I mean, I have been telling other monks that, why don't you learn Chandas and Alankara, the meters and so on. I myself is very fascinated with that, because poetry and, things like that I'm interested in. And I see that this discipline is in decline, their decline. And even little things like Sinhala writing, for example, is in decline. And the monks used to be the ones who were capable of doing these things, and now they themselves, most of them are unable to write accurate sentence, accurate sentence on a letter. Kind of uktakyat is gone. So this is the decline of the monastic education, and of course the meditation has to be important part of it. Now also meditation here, I have a broader understanding of course monks do meditate, like say, for example, if you sweep the compound like we did earlier, if you think about the way you...
Stylish way.
Yeah, if you think about the way that it moves and your body moves, and those days I never thought about it, but once I did it for 1 hour, I got enough exercise. My body moves, I get sweat, and I am in the ground of the Bodhi tree, so I get the blessing shades of the Bodhi tree. They are not nobody taught, but actually now when I look it back, it helps. And I remember how I hide myself behind the shrine room and memorize the Dhammapada, for example, those days when I was there. And every day after the breakfast until 11 o'clock or so, study, learning. Now, a lot of monks miss this opportunity. Now they are driven to TV, they are all sleep, and very few are encouraged or pushed into learning. And so there a lot of work needs to be done, I think. And also, like say, when we chant, Puji mi buddhang kusumena nena, beautiful poem, with nice meter, you can see it. And if you reflect upon it, it talks about flowers, blooming flowers, how beautiful they are. They are transient, they fade away. And same thing happened to my body. Here,
lot of Dhamma.
lot of meditation, lot of self-transformation, and understanding the foundational teaching of the Buddhism impermanence. And now that's meditation. And it doesn't have to be necessarily sit on the lotus position. So I think also we have to broaden this understanding what we mean by meditation. And then explain, like here, for example, when we eat, the monks, we chant Patisankha yoniso pindapatang patisevami nevadavaya namadaya namandanaya. If young novice understand this, digest this, there is this meditation. I eat mindfully, and I eat this food just to keep my body going. And that's not for beautifying it, to make more muscles or anything, but just to keep Dhamma going. That's meditation there, and reflection on the food there. And actually within the tradition we have those things. We have these things, but we haven't educated them to see it integrated into the life. So that part I think need to be done in the monastic education.
Okay, great. Last question to both of you as we pass some time over here. So Bhante, Professor Mahinda talked about challenges, opportunities. So you can sort of go over that side, and then you can conclude what also by giving suggestions about the future of the Dhammadutta cultures. Challenges, opportunities, and the future. I will ask the second question from Bhante. What is the future? Because you already discussed about challenges and opportunities. So challenges, looking at the challenges, opportunities of the Dhammadutta cultures shared by Dhammadutta speakers, monks, lay people, and all these other dynamics. What could be the future like for the Dhamma talks, Dhamma sharing, Dhamma preaching, Dhamma poems, gathas? What will be the future like? What should the devotees, what should the practitioners expect in the next 5 to 10, maybe 20, 40 years from now? We are not at the peak of the technology yet. Yeah.
Well,
and you can do your conclusion with that answer.
Yeah. As Bhante Professor said, mentioned this, that actually my experience is young monks are interested in Dhamma, in practicing Dhamma, and also sharing Dhamma and helping others. But somehow they miss certain applications. So therefore we had to help them. Really, we had to help them instead of criticizing or blaming them. I know personally that most of young monks are really interested in practicing Dhamma and also sharing the Dhamma. Like Dhammadutta.
Do many monks come to your meditation center?
Yeah, and also they invite
How many monks
me.
you get every month?
It depends on them, but they also invite me to come to their places.
And but they come and stay a couple of days?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You were there?
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, you see, living examples. Okay, go ahead.
So therefore, I really respect them. I don't criticize monks, even young or old, because they do whatever they know. Whatever they can. No, they can do many things, but they know only
certain limited areas.
Yeah, limited areas. Therefore, we had to train especially our young monks to cultivate certain skills, like language skills, and also the taste of Dhamma. This is most important thing, how to experience the taste of Dhamma. Because otherwise we think it's some kind of, it's a pain, it's a suffering. We are suffering because of Dhamma, because of Sila. But actually it's a pleasure, not suffering. So we need some kind of shifting or
facilitating, empowering young monks to get up to that level.
Exactly. That is the hope.
Yeah.
And I could add here, like for example, this is only a suggestion. We invite monks for dana, for example. I think dana started like 11:30 or something. If we have a kind of program, and if people think, like say, inviting young monks a little bit early, inviting young monks 9 o'clock, give them some snacks and say, allow them to meditate for 30 minutes, 40 minutes until the senior monks come. Or something like that, if you can...
Some harmless incentives.
Harmless incentives. And also, I have an idea. Like easily, if it's not possible in temples, you could easily do it in house. If you cannot do it, you can do it in temples. When there are ceremonies, inviting young monks and inviting them early so they can give some meals and give some 1 hour meditation session before the dana ceremony. Like that, if you do it, they can inculcate meditation into the system. And what happening is that our structure is rigid. It doesn't allow monks variation. Like for example, if somebody was involved in social services, there are obstacles in the community as well as in the temple. And I think the structure needs to be a little bit more flexible, I think. And then kind of think about creatively, as we said earlier, sermons for the young people, sermons for the married people, sermons for the elderly people, like that. Some activities for young monks, and maybe to bring the senior monks only for the funeral and the dana ceremony, and bring young monks for other things, kind of talk with the young children or give sermon to young children, things like that. Because then they also get empowered, I can talk to my fears, kind of like that. So kind of we have to think about new way of bonding them, young people bonding with young monks, and they have similar necessities and similar issues and similar learning platforms and things like that. Yeah, what do you think, Mr. Paul?
Yeah, of course, and I really appreciate about your previous suggestion that action part. So it is paramita, no? Yes. Helping others without expecting anything in return. So we missed that one now. No Sramadhana now. Sramadhana means offering our voluntary things. So we had to restart these things, that once a week or once a month we had to help others. That is part of the Parami. So if you explain in this way, it's Parami, you are fulfilling some of Buddhahood qualities by just sweeping the road.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you
and also by that way we can create a clean environment. Like say for example, in Sri Lanka, when I go to Sri Lanka with visitors, I go around the country. So I go to Nilaweli and Hikkadu and so on. I am shocked how many plastic bottles are on the beach, for example. These things actually could be voluntary organizations. If they take a turn, they could clean up. Of course, you cannot prevent people throwing them, but neighboring association could do that. Things like that would be great.
So how do Dhamma talk cultures help these things?
Encouraging, and then we have to go to the Maitri Varna, for example.
So then that means Dhamma speakers have to incorporate these aspects in their Dhamma talks. Recycling, how to properly recycle, how to clean after you, how to go for a green culture, right?
Yeah,
Contemporary.
It is called Desana. Pali word is Desana. And Desana is a Patihari, miracle. You can do miracles by Desana.
Yeah.
So miracle means these things.
Only if you present the proper context.
Yeah, proper context, and you have to do it. Whatever you say, you have to do it. So if you say clean the environment, you have to start. Then the other followers come.
So along these lines, what will be the future of Dhamma talks in next couple of years, 10 to 20 years? And you can conclude with that.
Well,
if we really address, supposedly if the real issues are really addressed by the Dhamma talk cultures, by the speakers, whoever, what would Buddhism be, undergone at that point in the future?
Yeah, we are happy to say that Buddhism has solutions for every problem. Each problem, not in this human world,
universal.
So we had to explain these things. Yes, whatever you have a problem, there is a solution in Buddhism. So problems are there, solutions are there, but no link. So we had to find a way
to bridge the link.
So that is the future.
Thank you. Bhante, so what's your conclusion?
Thank you. I think if you look at from the late 18th century, 19th century up to today, what you see is that Buddhism is adopted and adapted. And like if you think about the 20th century, late 19th century, they thought that education is very important. Buddhist education, kind of dissemination of knowledge is important. Now it has changed. So now we have to show the relevance of Buddhism to contemporary issues. And so we have to shift our gears. As you said, we have to incorporate some practical aspects to our teaching. And I think then we can build the bridge. And now here, what we're missing is we have ignored some of the valuable things which existed in 19th century. Now here I go to Kandyan period, like Maitreya Varna, the Lordry commentary on future Buddha Maitreya. Now that's very clearly says that if you clean the road, if you build the bridge, if you help other people, and if you do these things, you will definitely see the Buddha Maitreya. So like integrated that this other benefiting resources is an integral part of Buddhist path and becoming Buddha and seeing the Buddha and so on. So we have to kind of twist. It's not something alien. It's already there in the Jatakas. It's already there in our tradition, and kind of bring them back and say, your learning to only the book is not enough. That learning has to be integrated to your personality, your community, and you have to use that knowledge for the benefit of others. So Dhamma talk, I think, has to not necessarily formal instruction, but instruction combined with pragmatic concerns of the society around them. I think so Buddhists have to make it now, Buddhism is relevant for today, relevant for you, relevant for the young person in front of you, relevant for the couple who are struggling with conflict in their family life, like that. We have to kind of sift and kind of direct that there are relevant parts on Buddhism that you can use it in your life. That's where Dhamma talk, I think, should take
Will
the
be in the
direction.
future. A big thank you and anumodana to both Bhante, Professor Deegalle Mahinda Thero. Professor Deegalle Mahinda Thero is an emeritus professor at Spa University in the United Kingdom, and is also a professorial fellow at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies at University of London. And with him I interviewed, the discussant was Mr. Upul Gamage, who was the resident teacher of Nilambe Meditation Center. He was a direct student of late Mr. Godwin Samarwickrama, who was a very famous meditation teacher in Sri Lanka. While thanking both of you, I wanted to sort of recap what we've been discussing today. We've been looking at new trends of the Dhamma talk cultures. Dhamma talk cultures mean everywhere, I think. We primarily focus on Sri Lanka because they all come from Sri Lankan backgrounds. But we looked at these new trends from different non-territorial perspectives everywhere in the world. And then we also looked at the future of the Dhamma talks. So I think it was eye-opening and thought-provoking. And I would like to thank Vihara for organizing this. Probably I can ask Brother Leslie is with us to come forward and give a word of thanks in a couple words about this first episode of our dialogue series.
Thank you, Venerable Dr. Chandima, and also to Professor Mahinda, and also to Acharya Upul Gamage. We have to actually thank Bhante Dr. Chandima for coming up with this idea of starting this dialogue series. And I think it's an excellent idea, given the fact that we have actually all three very erudite and very knowledgeable Buddhist teachers here in one venue in this particular time at the Buddhist Maha Vihara, and to put this together. And I think this is going to be a catalyst for the future in the Dhammadutta series that we have here at the Buddhist Maha Vihara. And Bhante, we would like to thank you for taking this initiative to start this, and I'm sure we will like to carry this on. We can do this online and in other formats. And I think that today's topic was very relevant, and because we here at the Buddhist Maha Vihara predominantly Dhamma-based preaching kind of an institute or an institution, and the subject matter that was discussed is very relevant to us, and especially the future trends, I think will be something that we have to take note of and make amends as we go along in the future of Dhamma propagation here at the Buddhist Maha Vihara, and especially in Malaysia. So once again, on behalf of the Committee of Management and the monks of the Buddhist Maha Vihara, let me take this opportunity to thank Bhante Dr. Chandima and Professor Mahinda and Acharya Upul Gamage for this wonderful sharing this afternoon. Sadhu.
With that note, on behalf of Buddhist Maha Vihara, we would like to let you know, please stay with the Maha Vihara. It is the center, it's the hub of the Dhamma talks, Dhamma sharings for many years, many decades, for the next dialogue coming up probably in a couple of months, maybe so. Thank you. Have a good day.